this is James, and I'd like to welcome you to the Oracle Outlook for the week starting August the 13th, 2018. This week, I wanted to work with Lenormand, and I specifically wanted to work with the Rana George Lenormand. If you remember, I worked with this deck a couple of weeks ago, and it was very well received, and so that is the reason why I'm wanting to work with it again. So the Rana George Lenormand is by Rana George, of course. The artwork is by Callie French, and it is published by U.S. Game Systems Incorporated. So I have the deck on hand. I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the cards. And as I shuffle the cards, I'm focusing on my usual intention and question for these weekly general readings. And that is, what do we need to know for the week ahead? Alright, so I'm feeling that will work. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards. And fan them out. And now I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, so I have the 5 cards selected. Now I'm taking the remainder of the deck up, and I'll put that to one side. So now I have the 5 cards face down. And as you all know, at this point, I like to work with the middle card first. For me, the middle card always represents the central issue, something we're being asked to focus on for the week going forward. Or if the cards are unfolding a particular story, this would be the heart of the story. Or if we consider this to be the hinge card, that's another name for it, then it would be saying too, like, everything hinges on this card. So let's see what the card is. And here we have, okay, so as the focus, we have cross. And so cross is a card for me that can represent difficulty or burdens. So it could just be there, for some people, there may be a focus, or we need to give attention to some form of difficulty or some burdensome type of situation this week, right? It could also be too, like, whatever the situation is, it is necessary or it's critical that we deal with this burden or we deal with this difficulty, because I tend to look at cross as something that's critical or necessary. Going with the critical aspect of the card, it could be for some people, there may be some sort of crisis or ordeal that comes our way this week, or that requires our attention, that becomes front and center or the focus this week. And with that, it's making me feel this idea of, like, something has reached a critical point, or a situation that has reached critical mass. Those are the words that are coming to me in my mind to describe this card. So it could just be saying to, like, whatever the situation is, it's important that we deal with it, that we resolve it, that we move through it. It could just be a matter of taking the responsibility this week to do that, because cross can also represent responsibility. In another context, cross can represent things like religion and spirituality, and that reminds me of something that I said last week, because we had the Joker card, Red Joker in particular, show up last week, and I had talked about this idea for some people that could represent moving in a new spiritual direction. So we have that again. So if that resonated with you last week, you are getting it again. This is a time to maybe explore something having to do with your religious path, your spiritual path, things like that. And that you're exploring your faith, right? And as I say the word faith, then this again could be another reminder about maybe taking a leap of faith, or having faith and trust in the universe, especially if you're moving into a new spiritual direction, or if you are a religious person. If you're going through some sort of burden, some sort of difficulty, some sort of crisis or ordeal, it may be with cross you're being encouraged to maybe lean in on your spiritual understanding and trust and have faith in the divine, and whatever the divine means for you, however you language that, that may be it. Because sometimes this card can just be, in terms of offering advice, is that no matter what the experience is, We're all being encouraged to have faith, right? So there's that. Again, cross could represent a burden, a difficulty, a situation in which we need to assume some level of responsibility for. It could just be a matter of we're exploring something having to do with religion or spirituality. But no matter what the context is for each of us personally, this card is about faith. So now, the surrounding cards will give us more information about what the central issue is. So taking a look, I should say, at the card on the far left, opening the line up, we have, okay. So here we have mice. So mice is a card that can represent loss. So it could just be, and would be loss that's, over a period of time. This card can represent a gradual decline, gradual decay, gradual erosion. So for some people, they may be dealing with a sense of loss, that kind of thing. It could also be about stress and worry. So if we are talking about this idea about going through a difficult time or experiencing a difficulty, there may be stress and worry that's wrapped up in that, right? Mice could also be suggesting like it's stressful and worrisome and bothersome to some degree, but it's gotten to the point where it may be eating away at you and gnawing at you, because mice nibble on things, right? So it could just be this kind of thing where it's starting to eat away at you, it's starting to gnaw at you, but it could just be a matter of it's wrapped up in this sense of loss. Sometimes mice can be about theft. It's known as the theft card. So it could be a matter of we are having a difficult time moving through a sense of loss. Maybe for some people, it's this sense that something has been taken from them. They've been feeling robbed of something. That's what's coming to me. And maybe that's where maybe the faith or this idea about religion or spirituality comes in, because maybe you are trying to wrap your head around that, or you're trying to make sense of that in that kind of context. From a spiritual standpoint, you're trying to understand the loss, right? And with that, then I'm being reminded that cross can also be the sense of grief or suffering. So it could just be a matter of that's the emotional experience around the sense of loss. I'm feeling as a result of the loss, I'm in a place of grief, I'm in a place of suffering, maybe even feeling a sense of persecution with that. So it could just be a matter of all those things. So it just may be a matter of you finding a support system to help you with the grief and the suffering if you're dealing with that as a result of a loss. So I want to put that out there. If you can find some help and some support for that, please do so. Mice can also be about this idea that maybe little things are annoying us, because I tend to look at mice as petty irritations, petty annoyances, nuisances, that kind of thing. So it could just be a matter of we are being given a heads up to not let little things bother us, not to let little things annoy us, not to let little things stress us out and eat away and gnaw at us, right? So there is that to consider with mice. Now, taking a look at the card in between mice and cross, we have, okay, so here we have one of the extra cards in the deck. If you saw me work with this deck a couple of weeks ago, you may remember that I talked about that there are 4 extra cards in the deck, and this is one of them. This is Market. So Market is a card that can represent work or business. So it could just be a matter of whatever the stress is for some people, whatever the stress or the worry is, whatever is bothering us, whatever is annoying us, whatever is irritating us. It may have to do with work, or it may have to do with business if you are self-employed, because this would be a self-employment card possibly, right? So there is that. So this could just be job stress, worries about job, that kind of thing. It could also be worries about the business. If you are self-employed and you are worried or have stress around that, it may be because you need to consider who is your market, meaning like who is your audience, who is your demographic, who is the people that would be best served by what it is that you are trying to put out into the marketplace, right? So there is that. I'm just also getting too, for some people, there may be a concern, or, with mice being about stress or a sense of loss, Then this could be maybe for some people dealing with the loss of a job, loss of business, that kind of thing. But I was also thinking like the market, and I tend to think of like here in the United States, we have health insurance or health care through what's called the marketplace, right? So there may be somebody who's dealing with that kind of thing and trying to work through that. You know, this whole idea about maybe needing health insurance, health coverage, that kind of thing, and maybe worried about that, or there's been a change with work and it has resulted in the loss of maybe that kind of benefit. And so now we're trying to kind of come up with ways to kind of reinstate that, or find ways to keep that going, because now it may become critical or necessary to do so if we go with the idea that cross is following market, right? So there is that to consider. Now, if somebody is moving in a new direction with their religion or their spirituality, then market is about shopping around. So that would be about what are your options? What are the options that are available to you? What would you be interested in? What would meet your need? You know, marketplace could just represent this idea about choices and selections. There are a multitude of choices and options available to you, but which are the ones that you want to invest in? If we go with the idea that the market is where we do business and we have transactions, or we make transactions, meaning like we spend money there, where would you like to spend or invest your energy? If we go with the idea that money is energy, where would you like to spend or invest your energy in that regard, right? So, but it could also be too, somebody is actually in their business or the work that they're doing may have a religious slant or a spiritual slant to it, right? So there's that to consider. So now let's take a look at the card on the other side of cross. And here we have, okay, so here we have heart. So heart is all about love and romance. So if we go with the real literal, so somebody could be in the market for love, right? So this could just be, I'm shopping around, I'm looking at my options, I'm considering what it is that I want to spend and invest my energy in when it comes to my love life or my romantic life. So it is that. But it's making me feel like somebody may be in the market, or that somebody is shopping around, that kind of thing, right? And for somebody, if that resonates with you, then that may be where the difficulty lies, right? And somebody may be having a difficult time with this idea of being with somebody who may be exploring options or wanting to shop around. So I'm seeing that. But if somebody is, you know, in business for themselves, let's say, or work even, at this time or at this stage, you could just be saying too, like, what is the type of work that you would love to do? Right? If you're shopping for work, if you're shopping around for work, that kind of thing, what would you love to do? Right? If you're in business, are you passionate about your business? Right? And keep this in mind. If you are doing your own thing, then cross would be this idea about that maybe that you are realizing, or maybe you need to realize, that there's a lot of responsibility in doing your own thing. Right? So just keep that in mind. You may find yourself, as you're moving into the space of working for yourself, then you may realize there's a whole lot of responsibilities that maybe you didn't realize were there when you were an employee on the job for somebody else. But I'm seeing with heart mirroring this card, it's about like if you are doing your own thing, if you have your own business, be sure that you are passionate about. It could also be too, like if you are in your own business and you are considering who your audience is, your market, then it could just be making sure that people are just as passionate and enthusiastic about what it is that you're putting out there as you are, right? Because here's the thing, people gotta love it to some degree. People have to love what it is that you do, right? Or they gotta feel something about it. Here's the truth about people and being in the marketplace. People, generally speaking, buy from their feelings and their emotions. Heart is all about feelings and emotions. So people are emotional spenders. And so people buy because they want to either feel a certain way, or they want to feel like they're achieving a certain kind of result as a result of whatever the product or service is, right? So what if you're trying to market your business, and let's just go with the idea that maybe market could also be marketing. you have your own business and you're trying to market it. And if you're trying to market it and you've been having difficulty around that, right, then the idea here is about what would people feel as a result of buying your product or experiencing your service. Or you go with the idea here. In marketing, we call, I'm making sure I have the order of the cards right. So in marketing, we have what's trying to identify a pain point, right? And that would be cross and heart. What would be the pain point? What is the difficult emotional experience, the emotional difficulty that the person is having connected to their experience? And how can you address that pain point with your product or your service? But generally speaking, people are emotional buyers. So you have to hit them on an emotional level in order to get them to be interested in your product, your service, or your business. The only other thing here with this is that it reminds me that when I worked on my job out in the world, one of the things that we strived to do was to create a sense of raving fans. And for me, heart is about fans. So it could just be a matter of how can you maybe create fans around what it is that you're trying to do. So see, great shift here is like the shift in the story has now become centered on job and work and business because of the market card. For me, out of the cards right now, it feels like the market card is the strongest card. So it's making me feel like there may have been stress and worry, especially if somebody has been having a decline, maybe a slow decline in your work or your business. Then cross would say it's gotten to a place where it's becoming difficult and it's becoming a burden, right? Or that you are now wanting to assume responsibility for trying to maybe turning things around. And with that, then this card would be about tapping into the feelings and the emotions connected to your market. So that's how I would look at the first four cards. So now let's take a look at the last card, wrapping this line up. We have, okay. So here we have letter. So letter is a very interesting card at the end because in a business context for me, this card can represent this idea about a manifesto. And a manifesto would just be a matter of putting into writing what it is that we are intending to do with our product or our service. So for somebody may need to really just come up with a manifesto or put something in writing. So this could just be as simple as, what's the vision? What's the mission? Because in companies and corporations and businesses, we all have mission statements or vision statements. So maybe putting that in writing, that kind of thing. Or maybe there's something about paperwork or documentation with the business that we need to kind of maybe pursue, or maybe we need to take responsibility for and get that done. I'm seeing things like maybe a license or a permit or something of that nature, that kind of thing. It could just be a matter of, for some people, if you're not feeling paperwork, if you're not feeling documentation, it could just be a matter of you may need to shop around for somebody who could do the paperwork or the documentation for your business, because I'm seeing that that's important too, right? It could also be too, if I mirror mice and letter, then here we have maybe stress or worry about maybe paperwork or documentation or something being in print, right? And so we're stressing about that. So maybe for some people, like there is a great deal of stress and worry when it comes to paperwork, right? And so if that's the case, then maybe you might need to get somebody else to assist you in moving through or dealing with the paperwork or the documentation. So I'm seeing that. If we go with the idea here that heart is the card that's immediately touching letter, then here if we go with the idea that this is talking about maybe a romantic relationship or something having to do with one's love life, then there may be a need to take a look at communication, because this could literally be maybe something written or a message about one's feelings, one's emotions, that kind of thing. It could just be a matter of instead of having a verbal conversation or verbal communication, which would be birds, this is about maybe getting your feelings down in print, writing down your feelings, that kind of thing. kind of thing. So I'm seeing that. So this could be an email or a text or even a letter about love, romance, our feelings, our emotions, that kind of thing. Maybe you have difficulty expressing your feelings, and so if that's the case, then maybe something helpful for you would be to write them down. Write down how you feel. It could just be a matter of it's easier for you to express how you feel in print or in the written word rather than verbal communication. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. So now let me just sum up the line again. So opening the line up, we had mice. So mice can represent worry, could represent stress, could represent the sense of loss, for somebody who's experiencing loss, and it's about like not also allowing little things to irritate us, annoy us, be a nuisance, that kind of thing. But it makes me feel like the greater message here is about dealing with stress, dealing with worry, dealing with a sense of loss, that kind of thing. Now, market would be, for some people, that sense of stress and worry may be attached to either work, being out in the market, or your business, being out in the marketplace in that regard. So there may be stress or worry. Somebody may actually be dealing with the sense of loss having to do with work or the loss of business. And so that is where we have the stress and the worry. It's centering around that. And if it's not that, then this could just be a matter of taking a look at this idea about our transactions this week. I didn't say this before, it's coming to me now. Our little transactions this week. Where are we spending our money? What are we spending our money on? Is there any stress and worry around that kind of thing? Making sure that all our transactions go through and are completed. That kind of thing, that we don't leave anything lingering. It's making me feel like that might be the case for some people as well. But it could just be a matter of like, what are you in the market for in the greater scheme of your life? At this stage in your life, what are you in the market for? What are you shopping around for? What are you looking at in terms of choices, selections, options? So that would be market. And then we move into our focus card again, which is cross. Cross is a card that can represent burdens or difficulties. So for some, it could just be a matter of dealing with the stress on the job. And that may be difficult, if you're having job difficulties or difficulties with work or difficulties with business. That may be where you need to kind of take a look at that and saying, maybe take a look at how can you assume responsibility for your reactions and responses to what goes on the job. For some people, they may be actually dealing with the sense of a gradual decline in either work or business, and now we have gotten to a place where it has become critical or necessary for us to deal with that, and with that, it could just be a matter of having faith. For someone, it may be a matter of you are actually working through a sense of loss, and the loss has become difficult. And you may be in a space where you are dealing with your feelings and emotions, going to the heart card for a moment, dealing with your emotions because you're grieving and you're feeling like you're suffering, or you're feeling like it's not fair, that something you were robbed or something was taken from you, and you're needing to process that on an emotional level, but it's difficult. And with that, if that resonates with you, it is a matter of needing to have faith that you will get through the difficulty, that you will get through the burden. Right? So there is that. And it could just be a matter of who could be helpful to you, going with the idea of market, who could be helpful to you in helping you move through that. Right? So there's that. Now, heart, again, is all about our feelings and our emotions. So that for some of us, we may be dealing with more challenging emotions this week, or more challenging emotional reactions and responses to things this week, especially if we're dealing with stress. Right? With that in mind, I learned from studying health and wellness psychology, when we're dealing with stressful situations, it's a matter of taking a look at our coping strategies and our coping mechanisms, because that may be what needs to change. You may be dealing with negative coping strategies and negative coping skills, and whatever is showing up in your life this week, and you're having a challenging response to it, it may be a matter of getting you to take a bigger look or a greater perspective or gain a greater awareness about how you are employing the skills that you have to cope with those things. And that may be where you might need to make some healthier changes around that. So that is with heart that I'm seeing. And then wrapping the line up, we have letter. If we're going with the idea that we're talking about work or business related things, then this could be for job. In job cases, this could be a resume and somebody needing to put a resume out, especially since it came at the end of the line. If we're talking about business, this could be about maybe some vision statement, a mission statement, a manifesto for your business, especially if you're working on attracting clientele or attracting customers, that kind of thing. And the best way to do that would be, how can you get people to feel more enthusiastic or passionate about your business? In the marketplace, we are all emotional buyers, so you may have to tap into people's pain points, or you may have to hit them or resonate with them on an emotional level, because we are all emotional spenders, right? So I'm seeing that with the letter card at the end of the line. And on that note, I will go ahead and end this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading. And I want to take a moment as I'm closing to acknowledge those of you who have recently subscribed to the channel. I gained some new fans with heart, so I want to say thank you and welcome you, and thank you for taking that step to subscribe to the channel. It means the world to me that you would open yourself up and your world to invite me in for these weekly readings, so I don't take that lightly, so thank you very much. But whether you are a subscriber or just a regular viewer, I do appreciate you, and I thank you for your continued support and encouragement of all the work that goes into this channel. As I always say, I can't do what I do here without any of you there. So thank you so much. So I look forward to sharing this space with you in our next video reading together. And until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. And remember, if you're going through a burden or difficulty, this is the week to move in faith. Take care.